Boker Tov, Yom Tov, Zarim, Tovim, and Lila Tov. Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good evening, no matter where you're at. It's Carrie with Ken today. We have Brandon's hanging out with his boys and having some good family time. So I get to have my husband sit in today as we share some more about Todah Rabbah and turning from grief to gratitude. And I am sorry about the camera. For some reason, my wonderful external camera is not working today. So we get my less than desirable computer camera, but you can hear our voices and you can see our faces. It's just not as clear as I would like it to be. So a little bit we didn't want to miss this opportunity to talk to all of you today. So I'm happy to have you guys here. Jeffrey, it's nice to see you. Elaine and Kathleen, Nicole, thank you for showing up. I know we probably have a couple others that are coming in that I haven't heard from yet, because we are live streaming on YouTube as well as Facebook. So just to let you guys know that I'm having a difficulty trying to respond to those of you on Facebook. I see your comments, like Nicole, I see you're watching from Facebook, and Kathleen as well, but I'm not able to type responses to you. So if you have questions, I'm not going to be able to just slyly put them in with typing. I can do that on YouTube, but I'm not able to do that through Facebook. But I see you, and I'm happy that you're joining us where you're at. Oh, awesome. Look at who we have. We have the Walker family with us as well.
Boker Tov.
Hello, guys. We're family joining us. So, we had a fantastic weekend last week, and I figured we would talk about that just a little bit before we start, because it's really the opportunity to talk about truly grief to gratitude of what we witnessed last week. We went to a wonderful wedding. Ken's daughter got married to just an incredible person, Michael Martinez, and his music ability alone sets him apart from many with his giftings. But what we witnessed was such a beautiful union, and the whole weekend, the only word that I could use to describe the weekend was magical. It truly was. The spirit was there. I had personally some deep healing that transpired, that I went in one way on the weekend and came out on the other side completely different. And I did post something on Facebook about my experience, but sometimes when you have profound shifts, words just fail you. They just don't do it justice. All I know is that my heart flew wide open, and healing and restoration came within that I had dreamt was possible, but didn't really know it to be until it actually happened. So I don't know if you wanted to share anything about that, about your experience.
Oh, yeah. Well, just what you just said is sometimes words just they don't do service to the experience.
No.
And for me, I can still feel it because even for Carrie, just to bring it up, I mean, my heart is so full
Yeah.
that it doesn't take long for me to start leaking, based on what we encountered. And again, Todah Rabbah, grandfather and grandmother, for the opportunity really to translate a language into the experience, because words are really limited. The words are meant for us to comprehend who we are. And I could only feel what I felt at this amazing gathering of family, based on what we've been partnering with. We've been kind of cooped up for so long that we were able to go as an expression of summation of what we've gathered. And in that, it was so beautiful, to see the connection. But again, I see everything more metaphorically, like, and when I say that, I mean like meta, beyond, and fora, light. And so I saw it really express itself as a paralleling of light shadowing in on this reality to shed so we could experience this amazing wedding. And so there is so much that from the perspective of where we are, that I was looking at even the representation of the head table of really the king and the queen coming together for oneness's purpose, and how they were surrounded by the council of the groomsmen and the bridesmaid. But yet that is still a representation of one sum. It simply is a metaphor for us to experience it. And that's how I sing it. And it kind of undid me when I processed that. And
Well, and just to let you guys know, the reason too that Ken was using the term king and queen is in the ancient Hebrew wedding, when the wedding day presented itself, they changed titles, and they literally did become king and queen, and that's how they were referred to on that day. So this was a beautiful wedding of a sovereign stand of two that were becoming one, in front of all the family and witnesses that were uh, watching this joyous event and getting to participate in this exchange of love and this elevation to a status of spiritual royalty.
Right. I mean, in that, and again, I'm probably not being clear, because when I say king and queen, I'm comprehending us partnering with the language to know really what is going on, is that we really have angel morphism, because
Yeah.
it really is what we're seeing is a lesser representation, and that is seeking the higher spiritual intention. And so I see this paralleling, this metaphor of a wedding, and I see it as, what a beautiful opportunity. We are experiencing oneness in form and flesh, but it's for because the word for melech is in king and queen is still very much the same, of messenger, angel, again, but or prophet, priest, and teacher. And so I see this language morphing before me and going, wow, this is but an expression of who and how we become greater's intention. Because the head table, when I looked at it, I was looking at a mirror of myself, and I was going like, oh my goodness, this is my daughter is in the representation, and I'm able to ingather, and it pierced my heart at such a level, because it really fills up the whole compass to say that you are fully encompassed when your counsel of wisdom surrounds you, when the bridesmaids and the groomsmen surround you, it's within you. And this is where the king and the queen sit at one head of the table in the circle as one again. And so the union of marriage, ketubah, and the contract is directly connected. Yes, it's external, but on the higher dimension, it's very much internal. It's an internal reality. And it pierced me through. I'm still a little wrecked.
We're still processing what happened this weekend.
Yeah. It was so beautiful. It was just so, I was able to bless my daughter and my new son with their God-given names in Hebrew. And it undid him so much that my daughter's husband, even at the wedding table, he shook, because he said, what did you just do? I felt something completely be removed from my body, and because the new mantle was placed upon him. And I was very surprised on how he reacted. Very, very innocent, but very gentle. But he knew something was happening, because he doesn't really know what we do. But he felt it, that a mantle of an old construct was removed, and the mantle of intention, of fullness, was placed upon him. And his name is Michael Louis Martinez, and it really means, it's Mikiel Ari Dama Uri, which means that who grasps the concept of God is in the likeness of the lion's light. And it hit him in such a way that, and that's just a general summation, but it hit him in such a way. He said, he came up to me after and says, I don't know what happened, but something happened. And I felt something being removed and something placed. And that's our priestly role of what we do. So this isn't it is kind of what we're talking about Todah Rabbah, because for much gratitude for the ability to really conceive. I purposely saying that we're birthing something within us that is a priestly nature of antiquity that's coming back again. And so he felt the resonance of power, a vision that was placed upon him for the purpose of the fullness of his name to be manifested in the earth. And it was a blessing to do that. So,
well, and so much so that it touched him that he actually started shedding tears. And Chandler, Ken's daughter, said something to her dad and said, because they've been together for 7 years, and she said, I've never seen him cry in 7 years. And he was emotionally moved. And we were able to talk to him the next day after the wedding, and then that residue was still there, and there was still the tears. And so we know that there was a divine exchange that occurred. There was much healing, and we were able to bless them with the priestly blessing over them as well on the Hebrew tongue, and explain a little bit about it. And so it was just so divine. And I know we're both still.
So it's been a while, and like, I'm still
wow.
I'm still feeling it. We're just stepping into a season of deliberation and restoration right now. and I can still, I mean, it's right there. It's
You
like,
know,
wow. And I'm usually pretty good at, navigating emotions, but this is a little different. Yes, it's my daughter, of course, and I love extravagantly. My children are very important, but it's an expression that it was just so beautiful. It was so beautiful that the level of restoration and the level of oneness, that there was a spirit that was moving. And I know that if it happened in that one little venue, then I can already feel it. This is now corporate. There's something is moving in the earth right now. And this is why Todah Rabbah is such a big deal, that I don't want to get caught in the external of just gratitude as an external. It's the gratitude of the well within. And this is where I do best when I speak from this place, when my heart is soft and I'm not trying to stumble in words and get lost in the format of of many constructs, because I'm simply sharing really a frequency of what we're partnering with to try to explain to us that Todah Rabbah is really coming into completion, as in completely filled and full, when we fully realize that it's the praise offering, that we get to do something and we are fully returned as the answer of praise. And that's really what Todah Rabbah is. And so, in that measure of becoming, we, Carrie and I, were able to share the frequency of our becoming in a room that was really, there was a hush in the room when their name was shared. And it was very, very powerful. I mean, we're talking almost 200 people. And they, whether they comprehended it or not, there was still a spiritual overtone that it silenced the whole room in a way that they recognized that this was the greatest gift that could be given, is the recognition of our name, of who we are and what we're to become. It's no accident that we have names, that even though our parents gave it to us, it's still connected celestially, that it's a becoming of a frequency and a resonance, and it's extremely powerful. And both of their names, my daughter is Chana Danielle Rain, and really her name is Menora Danielle uh, um, More Uri, which means the standard of the light stands as light's breath, breathing as the sacred fire in the resonance of light's breath. And so I was able to bless her in that, in the fullness of her name. And again, it's going like, they have no idea that from beginning to end, the both of them are light through and through.
yeah. That's what was so amazing, was to see how much light was literally in their Hebrew names. And so it's like a double portion of light, and we could see that with even the aspects of the divine feminine and the divine masculine coming together. Like, it's not really, I'm looking at the curtains that are behind us, and it makes me laugh because we have the representation of the colors of the divine feminine and the divine masculine sitting behind
And that's
us.
not that's not put there because
It
that's it.
wasn't
That's
intentional.
not intentional.
It wasn't just, I'm looking at it going, wow, the timing and the convergence of everything right now. So light upon light joined together too, as into one on that day, and entering into September, the month of gestation, and to the point of deliberation at the end of the month, and leading us into the month of October, when we enter into that first week, which would correlate to the Book of the Covenants feast days, the Feast of Ingathering, which I've shared this with you guys before, that in the Hebrew aspect, it's the gathering. In the end, they will gather as one. So this whole thing, when we started out the meditation on September 1st about Todah Rabbah, and we were speaking about the expansion of gratitude and becoming as it instead of looking at it, into this wedding that happened on Labor Day. How fitting that we labor in the ninth month of gestation in order to birth something new. So there's a huge transition that's happening right now spiritually. And I think a lot of you are probably feeling it. I mean, I know we're feeling it, and I've had private conversations. And so if you guys are feeling it, I'd love to hear from you guys in the chat room on that as well, because we have great anticipation for things that are coming up from the point of deliberation, which we enter into on September 22nd, 23rd till October 22nd. Again, if you've been with us for a while, you know how the number 22 is a very important number for us. So there's just much stirring right now. And that's why we wanted to talk about the gratitude aspect. Um, the only other thing that I wanted to say, hello, Derek. I see you there. I'm really glad. Had a really good discussion yesterday with Derek and Malia Bros, by the way, from Global Witness and Rightly Dividing. Um, they're wonderful people, and we really appreciated the honor to be able to share some time with them, basically a couple days this week, and getting to know their hearts and them getting to know ours in a greater depth and measure on a personal, intimate level than just what we share on Facebook and on YouTube. So, again, thank you for that honor, Derek and Malia. We really appreciate that. Before we want to go in, I want to share something with you guys, just personal testimony, because we were talking about this morning that we really wanted to kind of be transparent about things and share our hearts with you guys and some of our journey and connecting it to the heart of gratitude. And I wanted to share with you the deep healing that happened to me last weekend, because it was something that I did not expect. In fact, I went into the weekend having a lot of stress, and I kind of had to turn my heart around from that quite a bit, because whenever there's divorces and remarriages, and there's a lot of things that are said. There are a lot of things, a lot of water that goes under the bridge. And, we can act and walk in a heart of repentance, right? The concept of forgiveness. But when it doesn't totally connect to the heart, then you're only half heartedly doing it. And for whatever reason that we choose to do that, it is our reason, it's our personal journey. But if we don't fully go through the full manifestation of that, then there's always a residue that's holding us back. And we're responsible for our end of the equation. And something that my husband has shared a long time ago, and I comprehend it too, is that the idea of forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about us. It's about releasing us from something that imprisons us and holds us, like a boat anchor. I had this visual of me in this motorboat, because usually when I steam ahead, it is full throttle, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's full throttle. And with a boat anchor, if you're full throttle and that anchor is in some bedrock, what happens? You just go round in circles, right? Until you actually deal with the issue. So you think you're moving ahead, and you're just going round and round and round and round the same point that is anchoring you. So what happened was, after the wedding, when we were going through the toasts, my husband's ex-wife and her husband got up and talked. And it was about 30 minutes, and a toast is generally about 5, but or less. But what happened is I heard something that I'd never heard before. Ken's daughter has cystic fibrosis, and I had heard about that journey when Ken, from his perspective as the dad in all of this. And it's been, I'm not a biological mother myself, and so I'm listening to this, uh, really wanting to connect at the heart level to comprehend what that journey would look like when you have a child that is essentially pronounced with a death sentence. Cystic fibrosis, if you know anything about it, it can be pretty aggressive. And anyways, hold on just a second. So what ended up happening is Nicole wanted to tell a story. She said, I need to share something. And she says, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to make it through without crying. She says, I need to tell you a story. And she says, I need to tell you that this is the single most important day in my life. Okay, so pause right there. This is the single most important day in my life. Now, based upon my own thoughts about water that had happened under the bridge and half-hearted forgiveness, I did not hear that phrase in the heart of what was really being shared. And you'll see why this really touched me. Because I'm like, this is your daughter's day. Why are you even talking like that? This is my single most important day of my life. And then she began to share the journey. She shared the whole first 4 years of Chandler's life and what that was like from a mother's position. when the doctors said that, you know, before they knew she had cystic fibrosis, the doctors were saying, well, she has failure to thrive. Well, what does that mean when you're 26 years old? Because that's how old she was when Chandler was born. And so she talked about that journey and what she and Ken, and it was so beautiful because she kept bringing Ken back into it. Like, it was an honoring of the work that they did in those really critical, crucial years of Chandler's life, in recognizing that, you know, it was work on both of their parts so that she didn't have failure to thrive. Or, you know, she had um, basically, the doctors had said that if she saw her 11th birthday, that you know, that was basically all that they could expect. And so the doctors kept telling Nicole that she couldn't really future broadcast about her daughter because the likelihood that she wasn't going to see life after 11 years old was a strong potential. And her tenacity, which I've always seen as some rough edges, the tenacity came out in her and said, no one is going to take this little girl away from us. And so what Ken and Nicole did for the first 4 years is that, if you know anything about CF, you have to do percussion work where you're, you know, beating the chest in front and back to try to loosen up all of that phlegm, everything that's on the inside of the lungs. And they had to do that like 4.5, almost 5 hours a day at intervals, like the total in one day. So think about with an infant, you know, and you're doing this for 4 years of this percussion work, a total of 5 hours, just about 5 hours a day, and taking shifts so that your daughter can have breath of life. And what's so fascinating to me is that her name, because it was incorporating breath, was the very thing that she was challenged with when she came in, was fighting for breath. But the full expansion of the breath, which is connected to the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh, is in the fullness of her name. So that which she has had the most constriction is also that which is going to produce the most life because of that constriction. And so that connecting really wrecked me. But more importantly was that I was able to see Nicole honoring Ken for the work they did in this beautiful girl's life. And when I know I'm going long on this, and I'm not going to go into detail of this, but bottom line is that she said, you know, she wasn't expecting her, the doctors were not expecting her to live past the age of 11. And here, Chandler got married at the age of 26. She's still here and she's thriving. And this is the age that Nicole gave birth to her. So Nicole, this was the single most important day of her life because she never thought she would get to see her daughter get married. And I talked to her later, and this is what's so fascinating, and is I'm looking at all of this, and I mean, it just made my heart fly wide open because I saw the honoring. It's like nothing mattered, and everything was coming into the scope of love, of one love, of unity. Nothing else mattered. Literally nothing else mattered in that moment except for love. And love triumphed in this moment. When I talked to Nicole later, and there was lots of hugging. This was just the most amazing thing that had ever happened after they shared that. And then we were able to bless their names, or Ken was, and I was able to give the priestly blessing over them. I talked to Nicole later that night, and she said, you know, the most amazing thing is that Chandler right now has 102% volume in her lungs. As having cystic fibrosis, she has 102%
That's totally
volume.
a miracle.
So that is so, I mean, I'm looking at this and witnessing this beautiful miracle that happened, and the unity and the healing that came from this weekend. And it was our hearts to start out the month of September, going into the weekend of Labor Day, to put forth gratitude, Todah Rabbah, and project that out quantumly in the quantum field, and that was permeating everything that we did, so that when we came out on the other side, we were truly living as it. And I could see it, and that's why we've still we're still reeling from what happened last weekend. And it was beautiful. So all of you that were involved in the meditation, whether it was at the time that we did the meditation, or you watched it later, or you participated in our sharing moments of Todah Rabbah, your energy quantumly helped shift that whole atmosphere, so that when we all left, there was something of transformation took place, of unity, of a beautiful marriage coming together in different families. The multiplication of gratitude was very evident. And I think that I'm sure that everybody left feeling changed. We certainly did. So that was just a testimony I wanted to share.
Well,
So.
and in that testimony, again, there's a reason why, because this is the amazing part of spirit, that we're able to recall and we're able to actually broadcast the similar frequency. And so we do that. And so we establish it by the remembering, and then we release it in its authority. So I prognosticate this, and I speak this, that it releases and it touches whoever needs to be touched right now for restoration, because that's the season that we're in right now. If we can connect correctly, we can fully restore ourselves as it never happened again. This
Right.
is exactly where we're going in the season of Teshuvah, the season of return, back to as it never happened. And I was just, again, when I wasn't until I got back and I was walking and I was just trying to decompress the weekend, and the spirit told me that your daughter had come in defined as breath at the beginning, breath in the middle, and breath on the end. In all honesty, she had to be restricted. She's only restricted, but through her struggle of affliction, she seeks the resolve of being fully breath again. And that, and so I'm walking, and it just came out of nowhere, because that's where I encounter spirit, is in the cool of my morning. And it just blessed my heart that she had to come in restricted. She was too powerful in her gentleness. She is such a gentle, kind young woman.
She is.
But more than that, but yet there's something on her that she doesn't even realize, because she hasn't found the totality of her name yet, nor has Michael. But they want everything that we released upon them so they could frame it, so they could look at their names in Hebrew. And that was a blessing to us, because it's more than just the name. It's the frequency within, and that's everything that we're sharing about the language. Is we don't look at from the perspective of the word being distant. We look at it in the resonance frequency. This is how we can properly connect to Yeshua, the prophets, and all the journeys, so the experiences that we can draw them from a past relationship into our present that directly connects to our future.
And then bring them all into our now.
So we live in the present, and I love defining moments, and that was a defining moment for me to see it. And I just felt like I was in my own tornado, but it was a vortex tornado, as there was counter rotation of mother father within me, and in that I find neutrality where they meet, and that's exactly what's coming in the earth in this next season, is a priestly people that comprehend mother and father within, and they've found maturation by neutrality's resolve, and they're going to come with answers to questions, and they're going to come with resolve and pointings and directions, and Todah Rabbah is directly connected to that. And I don't even know where we go with this now, but besides into just a word construct, but we're building something, and we're sharing our relationship of what we built, and going into the experience of in that frequency. And it was so humbling for me.
Oh yeah.
To go into an environment that both Carrie and I feel a little isolated based on what we do, and we guard and protect it, because this is the sacred word, and so we do protect it, because it does get squandered and it does get crushed based on lack of comprehension. I mean, don't disrespect, but we feel the weight of this, and you kind of walk into another world, and you're seeing that they're so distant from the intention, the origin's intention. And it grieves me but yet I'm able to see potential in everybody. That's part of my blessing, is what the Father gave me an extra dose of, is seeing so much potential in humanity. I have such hope, and what I see is beauty. And yet where other people see a distancing, I see a returning to. And that's the whole process of Todah Rabbah, is the return to, whether it be disgrace or shame or dishonor. It is simply seen in neutrality, from a distance from one thing to the other. Disgrace is simply a distancing to grace. And so we can break down things and neutralize them and realize, oh, we're simply finding it. We're simply remembering that which we already are, and we get to encounter it, and we call it experience. And therefore we know yada. And that is actually the root of Todah. Todah comes from the root of yada, and it really means the knowledge of the hand that points you in the direction. So it's directly connected to the compass. It's the hand that points you. And if you journey correctly, because Todah Rabbah is directly connected to right ascension of the right hand, establishing sovereignty's right order. And this is where we, true full measure of Todah Rabbah in its innocence and in its full potential, is supreme court. It means in your walk of becoming, you have stood, you have built and consumed on the altar. You've fully consumed your heart through the sacred fire of all the beastly flesh nature. That's the representation of what the altar is in its consuming nature. And this is the work and duty of the priest. But it's an external, but it's more internal. It's just our internal reality that comes out as an outward manifestation. So everything is a metaphor or expression of a shadow. And if we correctly walk in the way of light, then we incrementally shed light on the dark. Dark is but shadow upon shadow upon shadow upon shadow. And in its diminishing, by journeying through the light, right? Because it's like that light is now breaking down incremental shadows that reveal the fullness of what the dark is. That's Father. Father is the dark. And we can only find him by the light of the mother, by the nurturing of how even Yeshua walked in humility as a servant. He served himself and others. By right appropriation, he self-adjudicated, delivered himself as the measure of Father. That is the governance of well-being. And I'm saying these words because Todah Rabbah and wholeness and well-being are all the same words. Wholeness is fully healed as fully restored. And this is why Todah Rabbah, even though it's a word we say, is thank you, much gratitude, but it means of kindness and representation, of similitude and likeness, of being completed and made full in perfection's light, of being whole. From the journey of mother, I now call you Father.
I would like to add to that. There's a word, I just kept getting this, well, and I think we shared this. I know that we shared this before in some conversations we've had this week, but it's the word amach, and it means the deep. And amach, when you go into the maturation cycle of Father, having come through Mother, when you take a look at the letters themselves, the very first two letters of amach is and it's mother. And then it has a kuf added on the end. And the kuf is the compression of light during the circle of time, finding the narrow path between that which was once hidden to that which has been revealed. That brings forth new revelation. So that is the letter meanings, or at least a partial interpretation of the word amach, that is connected to and has the meaning of the deep, directly connected to Father. So in other words, in order to get to Father, you have to go through the process of the depth of Mother, and that's how you compress the light to bring that which has been hidden to the surface, to render it clear into the place of neutrality. So I wanted to add that because that's part of that gratitude walk, the expansion of gratitude, because we are not disconnected from part of ourselves that truly needs to be revealed for the fullness of wholeness and restoration to occur.
Yeah. There was a saying that I shared at the wedding. I don't know if it's comprehended, but I use it, not to overuse it, but just for expression of like what we know and what we see is but a drip and a drop. What we don't know, but what we seek, is the expanse of ocean's depths. So, mother is a drip and a drop of just this um, an involute curve of seeking, and it's through just degrees and dimensions of finding the resolve of your own nature, of putting aside one thing but in gathering another, of wrestling through. This is where the adversary component comes in. And so again, if we can see this grief of walking, it's interesting that even the armor is the shin guards in the armor are called the greaves, and it's directly connected to the deep, is directly connected to processing the resolve of remembering the head, but can only be done by the grief of the walk. And this is all based on inculcation. And when you look at that word, it's actually even connected to the cockatrice, which is directly connected to Quetzalcoatl. It means a lizard bird, but it's that root word comes from a heel and hip. It's actually a prick in the side of what Jacob did to overcome. And what Paul had to deal with is the walk of your own nature while in the world. There was a prevailing influence in the world back then as there is now. And if we're able to overcome it, then we break through with a kingdom mindset. And it's living in a whole different dimension. For that, Todah Rabbah, because its resolve is perfected wholeness as holy. It's the same word, it's called completion. And now you find neutrality center. And that's the point of sovereignty, where you're now able to sit on the high benchmark as the Supreme Court, because supreme is the same word for sovereignty. Through self-adjudication, you're now able to see from all degrees and all spheres and properly administer that as a rule and a reigning principality and power. And so this is through the whole language. And so when we see Todah Rabbah from our end of it, like when I see it, it takes me down really to my knees, because it's showing you that instead of an external connection, yes, we can use it. It's actually saying inside us a frequency that, do we really comprehend who we are and what we're to become? And in the process of the grief, much gratitude when you're able to see the expanse of ocean's depth. This is where we have the dragon arises. The cockatrice is the dragon that emerges as revelation, fully revealed. And so again, the narrative of the English doesn't do it really justice, unfortunately. It's a lesser construct. And
well, it inverts it, because technically speaking, we want to become the dragon.
We do.
And again, this is all about the inward manifestation to affect the outward reality. And so I know that if any of you are new to joining us, that using some of these phrases that you're familiar with within the English narrative can be somewhat confusing. And it's why sometimes we need to slow up a little bit to help catch you up, because there's the depth of the sacred languages in Hebrew and Aramaic cannot be properly encapsulated within the English translations. So that's why I wanted to bring that forth, so that you're not looking, oh, they're talking about the dragon of Revelation, because we've had man, and Ken shares this, we've had man define these words and fill up the meaning, which has influenced us, because all these words are influencing us in how we see things. And really the whole point of Hebrew and Aramaic is the external orientation to get you aware of duality, and then bring you to the inward orientation to see that that which is inward is manifesting in your external. So now we're at the place of sharing with you guys about the internal manifestation. And so just like when Ken was sharing with the kids the name, their meanings of their name, what we are sharing with you as we deliberate amongst ourselves, within ourselves, is sharing with you how to become the words made flesh. And that's why it was so powerful sharing with the kids their new names, and why we go into great detail when we break down these Hebrew and Aramaic words, so that you can grasp a hold of the intent and the influence for the outward manifestation to occur in the fullness of the intention of becoming. Hopefully you guys are connecting with what we're saying, because the phrase, the word made flesh, is really easy to just blow by until you comprehend that words are but an influence for an external manifestation in becoming the intent of those words. That's why we always share with you guys to go within and to make it very personal. It has absolutely nothing to do with an external narrative. It has everything to do with an internal liberation and the revealing of the trueness of you outside of those external narratives. The revealing of the Mashiach, which is not the Christ anointing, which is not held and bound to narratives, but is true freedom and liberation from the deliberation
Right.
that we do in our inward journey for the fullness of the manifestation of becoming to being.
We can we can only really partner with the words for so long, and then really we're handicapped by them. And I mean that in the utmost respect for their intention, but they are but an influence, as that is their intention, is the influence that we comprehend, and it's a DNA code that when we connect with it in the intimacy of exchange, that it allows us to partner with this becoming, and it gently reveals itself. And this isn't something that can be ingested all at once. This is where we learn the patience and the long suffering of self-revealing. And it is a beautiful expression when you really I think I was sharing with the Roses yesterday about sitting in front of the laptop, and we get up quite early, but and having the expression of the letters shine through and staring at one word for like 2 or 3 hours, and then I get lost in it, and because it goes beyond just the limitation of parentheses of this is what it is. The prefixes and the suffix and deletions and additions are taking you on a journey to show you, look beyond, look into the deep, beyond the surface of the word, and you will see an arising, and it's from within. And so the language of the mysterious beastly things that are spooktified in the dark is like, no, when you reach the bottom of the ocean, it's brilliantly lit, because there you are in the totality of light sum. It's no longer a mystery. You are the mystery. You've solved it by becoming the answer and returning to that which called you. This is the answer. Mother teaches us how to speak. Therefore, we speak in the resonance and the calibration of return to that which calls us. And the language is but a beckoning to say, come and enter in, back to the origins intention. English in the cymatics is really in the lesser narrative, and I want to be careful, because when I say the word death, death is redefined as actually life. It's a gift. But in the world's narrative, it's a dead language. It has no frequency of somatics that connects and associates the DNA. It doesn't do anything other than it's a commerce language of monetary exchange. That's all it really is. It's how we navigate and connect in the inverted world. But when we come out and see the true influence and its intention of origin, of creator, source, mother, father, grandfather, however you want to see that, that it's a frequency that wraps itself and unwinds itself within us. We are really, in this construct, we are 369. That's the progression of becoming. What we're really looking for is a manifestation of the 12 strands that's beyond dimensions. And that's what's coming, is that there will be a manifested being that are coming in fully quadrated as the 3, 6, and the 9, and the 12. And we can see that written in the language. So it's yes, the 369 is powerful, but really all it does is point you in the direction of the mysterious dark, the north, which is the 12.
I did want to say something, if I may add, about the English versus the sacred languages and taking us to the 12. I find it very curious, and I always have, that when we talk about the Hebrew and Aramaic languages, it's the Aleph Bayit Ivri, is how you say Hebrew alphabet, but it's the Aleph Bet, and that's the very first two letters. But when we get to English, they change it to the Alpha Bet. Now, when we compare the two of those, the Aleph means one. The Alpha means dominance. So the Aleph, in the fullness of it, not only means one, it means the beginning. It means a strong leader. It also means one who has been taught and therefore teaches. One that has tamed and yoked their beast nature. It is one who has been given the staff of authority that speaks words of revelation. And that's like all encompassed. I use that word specifically, encompassed in one symbol. Then when we bring in English, that really didn't fully come manifested until the 1500s. They changed the aleph bet to the alphabet as the language of superiority. But like Ken said, through cymatics, there is no vibrational frequency to these letters in English. And they have found through cymatics that Sanskrit, Hebrew, Aramaic actually impact matter. Their sound impacts matter. And they have found these letters within our DNA. So that's kind of like a cause to pause here for a moment in that place of gratitude, realizing that these sacred languages and why these writings were written in Hebrew and Aramaic was specifically because the vibrational frequency was to tune our frequencies and affecting our DNA, because each one of us has a song that is played through our individual unique DNA. So the frequency of the languages are fine tuning us even at a cellular level, whereas the alphabet is an external orientation of control, where the Hebrew and Aramaic is a system of liberation on the inside that then manifests externally. So I know we've shared some of this stuff in the past, but it's a really good reminder and a refresher as to why we're sharing these things with you. You know, it's one thing for us to go in and we have some stuff that we're going to share with you, that Ken has worked on a file. But if we don't understand why we are doing it, I mean, literally, why would anyone want to jump in to study the sacred languages? Why? And we're not saying that you need to at all. It's our passion. You don't need to. You can find everything you need by going on the inside. But there is something very powerful that is written in these languages for those who dare to venture in, that is waiting to be revealed. But I like to put this as a warning too, because it's light, it's information, and more light comes in. More light, as Ken was talking in the very beginning, is meant to shed light on the darkness that's within you. It's mother and father working in unison within your body, within your vehicle design, your template, all the way down to the DNA, where we store memories, feelings, emotions. And as you venture into the language, it is going to surface things that are meant to be healed and released. Mm-hmm. And you need to be ready for that. So it's like, I don't want to forget to warn people on that, because it is very profound, the shifts that happen. And I've shared with you guys before. And for those of you who are new, I was healed of elements that I was told that I was going to have to just deal with for the rest of my life. I had complex post-traumatic stress disorder at one point. I also had multiple personalities, and that has been rendered clear and neutralized. And all I did differently was study the sacred languages and let them speak, let the letters speak to me, let the words speak to me, and do what it does the best, is shine the light in the place that needs healing and restoration in order to become a complete and whole person.
Neuroplasticity is the neural pathway that we're creating, and the language sets up that pathway. This is the neural pathway. And it's amazing, because the neural pathway is actually like walking a beam, and actually that's menorah. It means the beam of light. And so the language is light, and the menorah is actually that beam of light. And if you walk it frequently enough, it becomes a broad road, but we never forget that we're walking a beam. And so this neuroplasticity is really the expansion of mind and mind-heart coherence. It actually allows us to then process the influence of the word by walking the straight beam. That allows us to connect with the thought of its intention, that connects us to the heart level, that then connects it to the longing and desire to commit to the word's action for it to be completed and then made manifest. That is the whole connection of influence to intention. And so we're creating neuroplasticity. We're remembering that which we already knew through experiencing the language. And the language, by definition, is called the deep.
Amach.
Amach. When you go to see where the word is used, it's directly connected to, it's called an unintelligible language, but that was an English construct. When you look at it, what it means is beyond um, the level of profundancy. Profound means um, the first foundation.
That's
And
big. What you just said is very big.
yes, and you can say it both ways. So you can say it from mother's perspective. Profound means a foundation that is first to be established, because this is how we connect with mother and father. Profundancy comes from the establishment of mother, teaching us how to connect through neuroplasticity to expand our brain heart coherence, because this is consciousness. In the subconscious, under consciousness, we are learning to navigate to find consciousness again.
In order to unite them so that there's not a veil that separates.
This is profundancy. This is depth of comprehension, that you are now the knowing yada through the thanksgiving of Todah Rabbah. You return, fully return, as the offering of thanksgiving for the journey's purpose of profundancy, to become the deep. And so this is when you see it in the language. Again, we might not even get into the breakdown, but it's like I have about 4 files open to express why we are sharing what we're sharing and how we see this. And we first has to be a willingness to humble ourselves, to realize we may not know in totality the becoming and its intention. And when we can say that in the reflection of the mirror, we can deal with the beastly nature that wants to drag us down into a different construct, and we can break free to see intention. I fully comprehend that, because I had to wrestle that too, is listening to another man share from their perspective. But yet, spirit is spirit, and spirit knows what is spirit, and spirit will pick up what is necessary. And in all honesty, we all see our reflection in the mirror, and we already know our insecurities and our lack of becoming. It doesn't lie to us. We already know it. We distance ourselves from it in our day, and that's the distraction. But if we partner with it on a continual basis, we're able to see profundancies. And this is why the dragon of Revelation is coming up from the bottom into the world, and the world will marvel because of who it is. The beastly nature has healed itself by the fullness of remembering that which it is. The dragon, by definition, is light. So light's depth is revealed in the depth of dark. This is where mother and father meet as one in full maturation. The revealing and is joined as headship's table, a king and a queen coming together, fully encompassed as the groomsman and the bridesmaid as one. My counsel and wisdom surrounds me as I have become the measure of intention.
I mean, that's really profound. We're hoping that you guys can connect to some of this, because I know that when Ken speaks, and sometimes as I do as well, it comes across as being very coded. And it's simply, we've been in the language, for a while now. And because of that, we share things and we know what we're talking about.
No,
Because that we've been in this, and it's, you can see why over time, some things are shared in order for questions to be asked. Because Ken and I, it's not our heart to tell anyone anything. It's coming from the place of sharing through the experience. I've shared this too before, and I really, really want to drive this home with you guys. Part of where we have stumbled in our journey, and stumbling isn't a bad thing. Stumbling is, when you stub your toe, you learn that there's a rock on the path. And so the next time you go down that path, you're going to not stumble on that, because you're going to remember the stone is there. It's a way of being able to teach us so that we can extract wisdom through our experience. So as we begin journeying within these languages and they're revealing things to us, a lot of times it comes as coded information, because in order for you to fully manifest that sense of maturity and maturation, it can only be done by seeking, never telling. That's really important. And so the hiccup for us is having a Greco-Roman mindset, because that's how we were all raised. Our education systems are based upon this. And when we don't comprehend that these sacred writings were written to a group of people that had a Hebrew mindset, we sometimes fail to connect to really what is being said. So for some of you who have heard this before, I ask that you extend me some grace as I share, because I don't know who's all listening, if they've heard this before or not. And I'm sure we'll have some other people that go back and listen to this later. The Hebrew mindset is sharing from the place of doing. The Greco-Roman mindset is the knowledge gathered and sharing that they have the experience of it without actually doing it. And that's why a lot of times in our colleges yourselves, you'll get professors that teach certain subjects, but really didn't have any real life experience. They have textbook knowledge that they are passing to their students, but not experiential knowledge. And so because of that, it's void of power. So, to use as an analogy, and I've used this many times, is that the Greco Roman mindset, again, what we've all been conditioned to learn and grow from, is that I can write a book. I can read a book about riding a bike, and then I can tell you I know how to ride a bike. That's the Greco Roman mindset. And that would be without even getting on the seat of the bicycle and figuring out what the balance is like and putting your feet on the pedals and starting from the training wheels to the actual bike, right? Like there's a system of navigating from the moment of learning how through the information to actually doing it. In the Hebrew culture and mindset, they would never, ever say that they knew how to do anything unless they did it. And that's the difference between having hollow words or having words that have authority behind them because of the experiential knowledge. And that goes back to what we were talking about regarding yada and da'at and Todah. I mean, it's all connected. Everything is connected. So this place of Todah Rabbah, it may seem like we're speaking in circles on all this information, but it is all totally connected. And we're going to continue bringing it back around to the Todah Rabbah, because until we get to that place of the manifestation of the full implementation of becoming it, we're going to be stubbing our toe on the stone in the path, because it's going to keep circling around until we can get to the point where we're not looking at it, but we're looking as it, because of the experiential knowledge that we've had has produced an outcome based on an intent and a purpose from the beginning of the journey to the finality of the end of the journey.
This language actually, when you first go into it, looks like an oxymoron, um, and that's because in our immature state of being, we are an oxymoron. We're neither here nor there. We're fully filled up, but we're completely empty. That's the kind of context that it's showing you. It's showing you that form will not take place without information. And so the language looks like it loops a little bit, and it does, because in the same breath, mother and father point to center. And this is where, if you could picture a child on a beach and mother and father walking down to the seashore and the child's in between them, mother and father are holding one hand each as they're walking, and father would say, because of you I am, and mother would say, because of you I am, in the exact same time. And there you are. Between in Hebrew is huge, and it's the word for discernment. And it's where this actually Todah Rabbah goes, because it's really becoming benign. You're becoming well, fully healed and restored. And this is the whole premise of the compass. Just everything. It's just another perspective of a fractal of light, but it says the exact same thing over and over again from another perspective of what holy is. Holy is just fractals of individual uniqueness that really explain total wholeness. And we're to center ourselves in that, again, returning back to, as I'm sitting right here now, I'm a measure of mother on my right and father on my left, and I am a measurement of how they twine themselves together in oneness. This is the same as Yakin and Boaz, and in the center is the temple. That is me. I stand there in knowing rightness's journey. And I'm specifically saying this because Todah Rabbah is directly connected to Zadik, which means righteousness. And you have to know a way to go to establish light that sheds light to reveal Father within us. And so let's just go into some of this really quick, because we're sharing, but we're not really showing. And I don't know if people need that or not.
Well, but for some of you who have been following us for a while, you will have an idea of the shapes of the letters. For those of you who haven't, just listen through the spirit. If you need to, just close your eyes and listen, because the information on the screen might be distracting to you. I completely comprehend that. We will do our best to share from the heart level and connecting it through the spirit in a way that you will be able to connect to it. But again, these languages are so profound.
Yeah. I did see a question on there
Yeah.
that I did read one question just out the glimpse of my eye. And usually I don't because it's distracting to me. But I heard one person ask, what are the 12 tribes? And what's the representation? That was a really good question. Um, and I'll try to answer it in this way for you. Everything on the outside is only a metaphor of representation of what is to become on the inside. And so the priest is a calling for all of us to come into a standing order of sovereignty. That is the job in the earth, is to stand before we sit on the high council of the Supreme Court as the Supreme Court, seeing as all degrees, knowing how to adjudicate from neutrality, seeing it perfectly in balance and harmony. The priest is a representation of this measure. The ephod and the 12 tribes, as well as the Urim and the Thurim, are about an outward manifestation of an inward reality. The frequency of ingathering is solely dependent on our ability to process frequency's intention. Whether it be Reuben, Gad, Naphtali, Simeon, doesn't matter. They're all frequencies of potential in the past that we can pull into our now that affects our future. It's a language of ingathering that allows us to become completed beings of intention. This is the governmental role of Urim and Thurim, perfected lights. We have the black stone and the white stone, mother and father. On our shoulder rests the government's intention. Through the headship of demonstration, through the act of Yeshua, we are in full representation of similitude and likeness called kindness. That is what the definition of grace, Todah Rabbah, is full representation of kindness as family. And so the frequency is again an outward adornment that when we see it correctly, it is simply speaking of a potential of becoming its frequency. If I partner with the word correctly, then mother and father, as we've already stated, is a frequency of indwelling. And when it's fully established, I am perfected light within. I'm the resonance of the 12 stones, the ephod within. I stand, right, completely armored as Metatron's measure, because that's a measure of light's authority. And it means really the ability to see from all degrees at all times, because Metatron is a representation of Supreme Court. Not in the world, I mean it as you are sitting on the benchmark of the Shamayim, the heavenly abode, where we are fully wrapped and cloaked in the garment of magisterial robes. It's the black robe, but from light's wisdom we speak. And so that's the mystery. We speak a mystery of clarity, but it's robed, right, to hide really the brilliance of the measure. That's the representation of what the Supreme Court in the earth is. They're trying to represent. My question for everyone is, do you ascend, and is your language of righteousness? Because if you don't know how to define Zedek, to know the order of the Melchizedek, the king that has become the measure of righteousness, then most likely we're either in declination or we've journeyed, or whether it be purposed or not, we've maybe walked into the dark and everything looks like a dark mystery. And this is what we're shedding light on, is proper ascension is based on right's declination of west, south, east, then north. We don't want to go from west to north, because that's the left-hand path of dark and the mysterious. Only by going the way of righteousness, south, affirmation, faith, rendering clear through meekness's resolve, we find humility, right? Or the other way around even, right? Meekness is but humility's resolve. And this is how we make the measure that we're able to power and steward that level of authority. Mm-hmm. We are cloaked in it, but we're very gentle in our declarations. We fully comprehend the weight of responsibility of that which we partnered with. It's the sacred flame that burns brightly as purity's light.
May I add something about Melchizedek in that?
Sure.
So the phrase Melchizedek, you would know that in English is Melchizedek or Melchizedek, depending on the English transliteration, is that the reason why this is important, then Ken brought this up with the compass and taking the right hand path before the left hand path, is Melchizedek is a hyphenated word in the Hebrew. In Aramaic, it's not, that's been unified. Again, there was a separation in order for unification. So again, let's bring it back to the wedding at the very beginning when we were talking about king and queen, two that became one. Again, the Hebrew and Aramaic are meant to be unified, but they had to be divided first to be able to show the masculine and the feminine coming together in one, as the feminine portion of Aramaic coming to the masculine perspective to join it. So when we look at the word Melchizedek, Malchi is the word king or queen, Malik, but it doesn't have a fallen cough. Again, here with your spirit, don't get hung up on the letters themselves. That's why I'm not showing you anything right now. Malik or Melik has a fallen cough, and generally that means one who pours out their cup, or one that has been pouring out in the earth realm, but it hasn't filled up. It's in the process. And the first two letters has to do with filling up. So filling up in order to pour out your cup is that which a king or queen does in its static position, because that's just a root word. It is so you can hold a title and not do anything. Are you filling up and pouring out? Or are you just sitting on a throne and not doing anything that is meant to fill you up to produce what? Righteousness, Sadiq. So Melchizedek is one who has been filled up, who has poured out their cup, and then has turned it right side up in order to grasp a hold of the power of righteousness. By going on a journey where they were hunting and chasing after that which was going to allow them to go through the door of the inward man, in order for them to compress light in the circle of time, to reveal the hidden in the time of the revealing, as walking the narrow path of neutrality. So that's what Melchizedek, in through its letters interpretation, is meaning. So we have to know that way of being able to walk in it if we're going to call ourselves a royal priesthood.
And this is the precursor to the east. That would be the south. That Melchizedek is directly connected to ascension through righteousness. And that would equate as the south of affirmation through the journey of, like, out of the west, I walk the dry and dusty, but then I move or navigate or pedal towards the south, right? Allows me to see what I need to see. And you can see in the language that edification and exhortation is infilling. Now, the king would know this, other than oppression on the top. A king of usually of the left-hand path would be oppressing because they have control of information that they can't shed light on because they're going to the mysterious dark, and they didn't have the ability to navigate righteousness to render clear the mystery. And so a proper king is elevating through exhortation and is shedding, and because this is how the king of right established the measure. He had to fill it up himself, and he knows that his whole process of his estate of being is to create likeness. The whole language of Hebrew and Aramaic, the lofty language, is to create similitude. And so he infills in the measure that infilled him. His whole process, we can take it from an outside of, is the whole countryside of a king's reign. His heart would be in the likeness of perfect's reign. And so therefore, he edifies and exhorts. He comes under people to fill them up gently. So
because he's serving them.
Right, because that's what he is. He's the full servant king. Until the manifestation of rule of Father comes in, he is still filling the role. And that's what a good king would do to service. And it's interesting that even the word for morals and ethics, by definition of etymology in the 12th century, meant to know the way of wellness and right. Todah Rabbah. To know the way of wholeness is morals that lead to immortality. It's all saying the same thing. The Eastern stand of sovereignty, of fully arising in neutrality's potential, is arising as immortal, as antiquity, before time and space was even created. That can only be accomplished through the affirmation of the firmness of knowing the faithful walk of righteousness. That's the south. So I'm really, what we're saying is the grief of the west, because that's what it means, grief, and until it's returned to the east as gratitude, you're going to have to navigate what is right and what is wrong, because at the end of this, you will know good and evil, because good means wellness as well. So you will know the adversary from the journey of wellness, and in its completion, you now know good and evil. You are fully restored as the garden because you are the garden. You were a priest established as a sovereign standing, representing the garden in the earth again. And from that measure, you will speak the fullness of restoration. We are returning teshuvah as the answer. And so it's interesting that even the word for melaka means work. You will cease from your work because melaka is the same word for malakim, which means king and queen. So melaka means work. And we have the word for melkut, which is the same word for messenger, angel, and priest. So melaka, melakim, melokut is the king, the queen, the angelic realm of the priests, the prophets, and the teachers. That is the work, malakah. It's the revelation of becoming, right? And it means to be filled up as one in the measure of being completely tamed as fully revealed as revelation.
And the difference in that, and I know you guys can't see this, but this is what's so profound about what Ken just shared, is that this word now has an aleph added on the inside. Now, this is huge because everything that we are sharing is about the inward journey. We're not talking about any external orientation through this. Yes, it manifests externally, but it's inward orientation. So, what he just said is that which is being revealed in the time of the revealing is those who have found oneness on the inside. And any time that anything is added to a center of a Hebrew word, it is specifically speaking of your heart. So oneness within. And that shares what he just said. That word that he just shared with you is the word for work.
Right.
So faith without works is dead.
This word is used when they will cease from their works, when they're fully completed as whole. That's what this word is connected to in the verse, that we can connect it to the lesser. And I mean no disrespect when I say lesser. In the black and white of Greek and English, it translates, they will cease from their works. We need to break that down. But this is the word for work. They will become the measure of intention.
Which is the measure of intention, is the oneness.
Right.
Oneness unity found on the inside.
I'm just looking at the side note again, and someone said that interesting that the 12 tribes are also in an internal state. Absolutely. Shalom, shalom. It means a state of being. And so everything
to be complete.
To be completed
in mind,
as
body,
in
and
whole.
state.
And complete's the same word for Todah Rabbah. When we comprehend it, what it is, you return as the full measure of gratitude, as completion's purpose, made whole, rendered clear, bar, from Barashit, in the beginning, you will find the end. The first word is actually really stating beginning's end. You will build clarity by knowing, by choice, what it is you are choosing. You will be a summation of choice to create a state of being within.
And that state of being within is the sacred fire.
Shalom.
Of the covenant.
It's the sacred fire of grasping the scepter of peace. It's the revelation within that keeps you in the place of neutrality. Neutrality is nothing where everything is. You've rendered everything clear, and you see as supreme being, supreme core, as Metatron, full of eyes, you are now seeing all perspective of past, present, and future from center's one stand. You are now able to sit.
Now, in your now.
In your now.
In your now. So until we become that place, we are standing sovereigns until the work has been completed.
Haya.
Yeah, from the coming to being, to come to pass. So Haya, the root of Yod He Vav He, the root of Eye Esher Eye, I am that I am. So it's, again, as you can see, this goes.
It does
very quickly.
Todah Rabbah is like when Carrie mentioned that there was a group that wanted to do this. I'm just like, well, before we meditate, because it's so powerful. If we answer in the frequency that calls, then we have an encounter. Like Selah on that. If we respond in the similitude to that which calls, then we stand in the measure of its intention, and there we are. When that presence comes into the world, we will start seeing resolve. Mm-hmm. Mother's journey is really, and this is part of even the Hopi prophecy, that part of them, I don't know what they see. I'm just sharing with what I see, but I can see different because based on what we partner with, that Carrie has shared this, and we've shared this from many perspectives. So I will say it again for the purpose of clarity, that Mother has us deal with our own beastly nature. We rage with anger and frustration and many attributes that are not becoming. But we have to know these to settle them within ourselves. So what would become would be the intention of being a completed being. We have to experience this.
Yeah, and she teaches us how to work through those things, not stifle them, but work
Right.
through them.
But the inversion has caused vanity to create ego's narcissistic nature that is then created, or is trying to create, sustainable through what is unsustainable. But if we come back to the origin of intention, Mother really gets us to, because we're talking about two different dimensions right now. We're in a dimension, but we're speaking of a new reality. This is what we've been shared with, is like we're speaking of a higher dimensional frequency of a reality that's coming in, another dimension. Mother's purpose is to really take us to the place of internal war. It's a battle within, and it takes us into that place of affliction that's wrestling to find. This is Jacob. Think of Jacob, and Israel means to prevail. He prevailed in his wrestle, and he met the angel, and he says, "Give me your name." And the angel said, "Ma," not "Who am I?" What am I? Mem, mem, hey, hey. I am mother and father, revealed in the full measure of revelation. Ma. So you would spell it as no. He answered. He told him what he was. He said, "I am what, not who. I am what, Ma." So that's amazing when you look at that verse. So Jacob now prevailed. So Mother teaches us how to rage within. The 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 difficulty in the world that we're seeing, this is why it's such a contrast reality to what we're seeing, is that most people that have taken the side of world and its influence to intention have partnered with vanity's ego, and they've taken the battle external.
Yep.
So they no longer look inside to see the reflection in the mirror, to then go walk calmly and interact with people and go, "I'm wrestling this and I'm wrestling that," but it's your wrestle and it's your war within. That's the whole war. As Mother is a measure of war, as is Father, and it renders clear purity's intention. But those that point their finger outwardly and say, "Because of you," they've taken now the conflict externally, and this is why the nations rage.
And that is what is vanity.
So now we have narcissistic control in the world, and I'm not going to go into this because I choose neutrality, but you can see the purpose of good and evil, because evil and good are but a choice away. And we've allowed our sovereignty, we freely relinquished it for another person to make a choice for us. And most of the power influence in the world is in narcissistic hands and their control.
And the reason why we're seeing that is because it is a reflection of the narcissism that we all have within us.
Right. They are simply manifesting.
They're just a mirror showing us.
They're manifesting immaturity, childlike natures. That a good king and a queen, or representation of the Malachim, when they came to confront one another on the battlefield, their sole purpose would be that of seeking resolve. And you can tell an immature king because they want to go to war.
Externally. Instead of seeking
but a
peace,
king of
resolve.
Affirmation that has learned correct ascension through righteousness in the way of shalom. The double measure is Mother and Father within you. Shalom, shalom. Peace to the Mother, peace to the Father within you. You're hemispherically woven as fully matured. The brain is now knit from the feminine and the masculine, now see neutrality's purpose. And from that power, they speak and they say, "I come with resolve." How do we resolve this? Because they've already journeyed the way of resolve.
I wanted to respond to two things regarding what you're saying about that external orientation, that's external fighting. Drew, I see that you put Todah Rabbah, and I'm very grateful that you did. I find it interesting because what you shared on that with the Todah is with a tet, and Todah can be spelled both with the tet or the tav.
Right.
And the way that it's written with the tet means that you have a wrestle. So the Todah with the tet means that you are wrestling with the snake in the basket of the world in the mud, until you rise to the mark of completion in journeying through the wrestle to become the fullness of gratitude. So just be aware that that is not a correction. That's actually beautiful, because you actually we're putting the Todah Rabbah with the tet, which exactly is what Ken's saying, that we will wrestle on the external until we realize that it's the internal work because that vav right in the middle means that we need to connect to our heart. We need to connect that external wrestle is really connected to the internal wrestle that we're manifesting. And I wanted to say too, hey Claire, by the way, it rained yesterday. Finally, just thought I'd let you know.
That,
The less attention given to a narcissist, the better. The thing is that we've learned just based on what Ken was saying about that external orientation and that projection outward and the pointing the finger outward, is it's giving us an inside glimpse of us. None of us want to say that we are a narcissist, but we were born that way. We were born as the king baby, demanding things. And so, in demanding these things, we are actually narcissistic by design. Anybody who has done any control and manipulation in your life, even as subtle as it can be, that's a big fat bummer. I can't see. Somehow our chat room went offline. So we're still talking, but I have no idea what you guys are saying now. So for whatever reason, that distraction is removed. If you guys want to have a wonderful conversation in the chat room, we just can't see you now. But that narcissistic projection on the outside, if any of you have controlled and manipulated in any way, shape, or form, that is part of narcissism. Because we all desperately are wanting to seek control and abuse our power as Elohim, as kings and queens. So that's why that external manifestation is showing us that back so that we can see what is being projected. Because as soon as you overcome that, the narcissists aren't going to show in your path anymore because you have overcome that nature within yourself. Does that make sense? So connecting the Tet, Todah, to the Tav, Todah, looking at it versus becoming it because you overcame that wrestle. So your projection is different.
There's actually a progression there when you can see it, and because one would be the Tet. I'm only sharing it. The Tet is really a macro micro. It's actually it's an Ouroboros in itself. It's either a crown or a tail or a head or a feet, and it's telling you in its circumnavigation of orientation that if you journey correctly, then you're going to connect it to the crown. And so the feet and the head in Hebrew and Aramaic are very much connected. You cannot raise the head without the journey of the feet. That's the grievous walk. And so in its macro, it's really saying choice upon choice will produce resolve. And it doesn't even necessarily say a good or bad choice. It just simply says, because all choice is choice, that it will put you on a path of either straight or windy, but that's what the Tet really is saying. And when you connect it in progression, that at some point it will resolve itself as the full measure of Tav, fully encompassed as one love.
Exactly.
This is expansion now of consciousness. By underneath to the subconscious, you're making choices that are producing consciousness. That's totality of when the feet and the mouth are touching as one completed circle. You are now, you want to say a Quetzalcoatl, you want to say it the dragon. They're all saying the same thing. The phoenix and the Merkaba are all out of the ashes of the priestly duty arises the sacred fire's intention.
I apologize. It looks like we're having connection issues as well. We're having very limited bandwidth. So if we're either shorting out, something is happening with the internet. Don't know what that's all about, but it's happening. Oh, it looks like we're back. We're good. It got restored. So apologize. Connectivity issues. Ken was making some really good points too when it was going on.
Sorry, well,
it's all right.
Me again, but anyway, so if that was heard, that just it needed to be heard from whoever heard that. But choice upon choice, and this is when we can take the battle. We move dimensionally into the reign of Mother and Father, and this again is wholeness. This is hemispherically joining, and center is seated in the full authority of the intention. And so it's a beautiful, beautiful. When you see it for what it is, it's very, very, very humbling, and you comprehend how to steward meekness now because of its potential. And I wish everyone well in the full definition of the word. I wish everyone well in their journey, because wellness is really the wish and desire of Ahava. And it's connected to the same. The wish of the Father is the will of the Father. It's the exact same word in Hebrew, or at least it links up together that way to show you what the wish. And I was hopefully wanting to get there and show that in.
We can go. I can
Okay,
show stuff. I'm just waiting. We're talking. We're sharing a lot from the heart, and we haven't gone and
right.
shown
Well, let's
anything.
just
So
go down to
if you guys want to hang tight and take a look at some of this stuff.
so let's go to page into thank you very much file, to the Rabbah file. Let's just show them. Let's just walk them through the Thanksgiving part of it. Um,
The thank you much.
Yeah.
Okay.
right there. We're gonna start right there, and we're only gonna walk through this, and then you make up your measure can only be summed up through how you comprehend. I don't want to project anything, but I want to we're just gonna walk through this gently and patiently and just express this. But I want you to see something here. Todah Rabbah. There's Todah, the pretext to Rabbah. I mean, in Todah, Thanksgiving. Rabbah means very much or much, much flow, much water. And so in this, we have a praise offering and a sacrifice. Tav, Vav, Dalet, He. And so let's just go down one more word, Carrie, if we can say, look at the word.
I'm fine. I need to get there.
But I wanted to see them both. But okay, that's fine if we don't see them all. Now we have Tav, Vav, Dalet, He, and the word for to make a mark, Tava, Tav, Valet, He. Tav, Vav, He, sorry. So the only difference is that we have a door in the heart. This is one door. This is based on, remember, as it instead of at it. So gratitude is an attribute of grace and is dependent on your comprehension of grace's definition, a defining door that is entered from within.
And that door is, if you want to connect it to a verse, behold, I stand at the door and knock.
Right.
Right.
This is your heart.
So the word Yeshua, standing at the door, knocking on your heart, it has the accompaniment of a being of substance that is the rock, that is rays of light, is knocking on your heart. This is a frequency that is trying to get in, or rather having the door open so the frequency can enter to reveal that which is matching in its frequency.
Right.
So
this one word, Tav,
hopefully that
Vav,
makes sense.
So this is really saying, by definition, because you can see at the very bottom, 8420, Tav, that's the mark. That's how you spell Tav. So really, Thanksgiving is the mark, is the door of revelation. The mark is solely dependent on entering the door of revelation. And the revelation, the book of Revelation, is the Christ anointing. It's the revelation of the Mashiach. The Mashiach, in the compressing of what the mark is, you're becoming Mark's measure.
So to help with that, the very first verse in the Revelation is talking about the revelation of Jesus Christ, right, in English. But what it's saying is the revealing of the frequency of that which is contained in Yeshua HaMashiach.
Right.
That is within you. The whole book is about revealing this frequency, because we are all one. We are manifesting that which is within us, which is the rays of light, which is the rock that we stand upon as a being of substance that comes in the time of need and help, as the answer,
right,
as those who carry the anointing.
You will see in this, yes, it's absolutely true. You'll see in this that you'll always see that the hey is spelled hey, so you can't see it on here. So really, I could say the mark is Tav Vav Hey, or Tav Vav Hey Aleph, because that's how that could be spelled. But
because that morphs into the Aleph in Aramaic,
right,
the divine feminine coming together as one.
And we know that Aramic is the citadel or the rampart language of the lofty. And so it would be, again, a progression to say both revelation of mother and father produce the nature of one. So I can say it another way. A diameter is created through the radius of both revelations.
And a radius is a measurement of light.
Radius is also a measurement of half a diameter. But when mother is one hey, she reveals a nature that is necessary to reveal the other nature. And so two radiuses make up diameter, which means completeness and wholeness, as Todah Rabbah.
Two that have been made as one.
Two that have been made as one. Yep. Again, if we see as it, we will do ourselves a great service of delivering ourselves into the intention.
Yeah.
So let's just go down this and see what it speaks, just to connect without going too deep into it.
I did want to say that part of this too, the Tav Vav. So I've got it highlighted, the hey, but the first two letters on the Tav Vav, which you see right here, also means exempt from judgment. And the reason why it means exempt from judgment is because you no longer judge.
Right.
because you've rendered everything into the place of neutrality, because judgment is only set to divide in the system of duality, to learn what that looks like in order to render it clear,
Right.
to neutralize it.
Judgment is done through self-adjudication.
Yep.
And supreme, you would be outside of this dimension. When you become a supreme being, you're outside of this dimension, and you're allowing everyone else to self-adjudicate. You're
Yep.
simply watching their own process of self-adjudication.
Yeah.
And so people think judgment. No, there's enough judgment in the reflection of the mirror of self-adjudication. There's enough wrestle there of good and evil. You want to see the enemy? You want to see Hasatan? There he is. He's only a choice away. You want to see the anointing of the Mashiach? There it is. It's only a choice away.
So, in other words, you can go look at yourself in the mirror.
Yeah, there's the tree.
Because you're either going to see the nature of the enemy or the nature of the Mashiach, based upon the sum total of your choices.
You have to know both sides to know them both.
And again, if we're looking at the adversarial component on the external side, we're actually being kept in a state of immaturity, because that's what Mother is teaching, is the external orientation, trying to get you to the inward orientation to see that that adversarial component known as Satan resides in you.
Right.
You are the one that is that projection. You're projecting that externally so you can see that you have an adversarial component on the inside that needs to be rendered clear.
Yes, this is tethered to, we're going to get to it right here. Let's go down a little further, because this is tethered to celestial law that's connected to this word yada, because we're going to go into this right here. But this is where the mark comes from, because there is a way of right ascension that's directly connected again through righteousness. Righteousness produces moral ethics that allow for immortality to present itself as that's the intention. You move beyond life,
right? And
immortality is now behind the veil as redefining death.
Right. And so it's the understanding of that that's manifested externally.
Right. This is really, it's not complicated. It's just when we live in it, we're realizing we're breaking free of the construct and we're redefining ourselves. So yada.
This is huge, by the way. I don't want to blow by that.
No. So this is,
I don't want to blow by that. That's a big one.
This is actually where we get the word shub from, or to return. This is the answer. And so, but it's telling you that the mark is built. The full return that what we're waiting for, if everyone feels like, oh my goodness, the world, like, focus on self. So self can be a representation of the intention. This is how we're able to assist one another by becoming built.
Exactly. And it's not selfish. It's not self-fire.
No.
We're not being selfish in nature. What we're doing is we're taking our energy and putting it on the inside in order for us to burn away the things that are no longer serving us. Yeah. That's why shuv, return, there's another word for this, which has a sheen put in place instead of the tav. And so shuv is actually the very first portion of the walk to get to the tuv.
Yeah.
Because the sheen has to burn away everything and purify us in order for the mark, the tav, the frequency of completion as a signature to be put in place. It's like you said, the mark is fully built on the inside now.
The priest would lay his works on the fire to burn up, to consume it, and he would take on really the representation of the outward manifestation. He'd be looking at the camp's frequency to see if the presence could be kept there. But he would always be looking in the laver for the reflection of his own face. If he couldn't see it, he know that there was a ripple, and it was a language that something in him was not. And they'd go back and they'd lay something else on the altar to consume up as an offering. But again, that's not where we're going. It's telling us the inwardness of realizing the beastly nature that needs to be fully, the ego has to be rendered clear. No vanity. It has to be rendered clear that the reflection is a pure reflection, and you're seeing yourself as the intention. That allows you to enter the court, to allow you to encounter Mother and Father, the Holy and the Holy of Holies.
So in that's why the word Bahima to Kayotha is such a big deal.
Yes.
Because Bahima is a word for beast. Kayutha is a word for beast.
Right.
But Bahima has hem on the inside. So in the likeness on the inside, right? So you got the bet, hem, hey. So on the inside, whatever your likeness is in your heart is going to be hey revealed. So if you are beast-like, that is what's going to be revealed to the outside world, because that's what you're manifesting out there to see. Because the only way you can see your inside is by seeing externally, until you realize oh, wait a minute, all of that is projecting my inside junk. That's why I'm seeing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn to become the Kayutha,
Mm-hmm.
those who are of the living,
Yes.
that are marked, Tav,
Mm-hmm.
with oneness.
Yes. This is how
So
we.
just so they can connect that, that's Old Testament to New
Yes.
Testament. The beast of Revelation is the completed works of those who found life,
Mm-hmm.
found the covenant, marked with it, no longer in judgment, do not judge, and have found oneness unity.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
From the behemoth.
Yeah. The word.
It's a huge progression.
Yeah. There's actually demut, the word, and it means likeness as well.
Yep.
And it's bet mem vav tav, and mem vav tav means death. And it means likeness. So what you're building, and it's a beautiful word where they use it in scripture, but it means you are redefining and building death. You're going to remove it, and you're going to take the sting out of it by becoming it while you're
to invert it to life.
Father, so hear me in this. Hear my innocence of rendering it down. Anything on the side of dark of the north is associated to Father. This is why the overshadowing came. It was the spirit of death. That was Father.
Yeah.
Mother on this side is life, but we are redefining what death is so we can counter the dark, but not the dark. We are shedding light on it. This is redefining Father within us. And you can we've been showing this is like, so please hear my heart in that is like, death is not what we think. Death has to be built. And when it's built in righteousness, you become righteous light that now sheds light on death. And it's fully revealed as the expanse of one love. It's a gift.
Absolutely.
It's a gift. This is how you encounter Father. We have to go through the cycle. That doesn't mean we need to feel the pain or the oppression of it, because that's the inversion. We're allowed, and we have been given permission to experience it, to take it to neutrality, to redefine it, so we would know what it is by becoming it. Right now, the return is being built in the frequency of death. We are redefining it in the process of life. We are redefining death.
In other words, that would be taking and neutralizing it.
Right.
Because life and death are polar opposites.
They're both the same.
And when we neutralize it, then there's no sting.
There's no sting.
There's no separation.
So that's a lofty concept there. When we're going to get to that, because that's
trying to connect it to where we're at right now.
That's part of the Metatron file, because they're all connected. But Todah Rabbah for right now. Let's just look at this. So this is now again Todah Rabbah, extreme worship. You are the praise offering. There's nothing more than having your hands extended. That's the paleo of the hay. Your hands extended in the air of being completed as not the Vitruvian man? Is it? Vitruvius man?
Yeah.
Fully extended out. You're the representation of the praise offering. And so this is what it is. You are fully revealed as a man completed, right? And
here's the inverse, and I've shared this before too, that the Hebrew and the Aramaic language is a language of duality, so you can render it and neutralize it. So right here into Yada, you have to bemoan by wringing of the hands, but also to revere and worship.
Right.
So extreme opposites in order to neutralize it.
Right.
And what is it doing? It's saying to neutralize this, you need to grasp a hold of the vision. Right? The power by giving, going through the door of your inward man, that is going to reveal to you how to neutralize the bemoaning to the place of praise and worship. So again, grief to gratitude.
Right. So another way you can see this language too is that the hand should grasp the door handle. If you enter in, you will be fully revealed in Revelations. Revealing. It's redundancy.
Exactly.
So we can take it as a picture, and that's the root of Yada. This 3034 is to throw
the root of Todah.
Todah. Sorry. Yeah. So let's go down a little further though, so we can get just to connect this to why, because this Yod Dalet Hey is so powerful. Now this is what we were given when we first came here. When without even having this construct of this sacred language, the Spirit told me on a walk, he says, you need to not just write the book, you're going to become the book. And the book is to be called, I said, well, what am I to name it? And it's called Quivering to the Mark, the Flight of the Arrow, the Staff and Bow of Sovereignhood. And this is where the arrow, the straight of way, becomes the way of the archer, which is Hava again, or Haya. And so now we're going to go into defining this, right? So the measure is based on headship's revelation of being flight's law, supreme being file. And this is another file. But let's look at this, because it's the same Yod Dalet Hey, right? To flow as water, to rain, especially an arrow, figuratively to point out, is by aiming the finger to teach.
So the difference on this is the resh is on the inside instead of the dalet.
Right.
So the resh meaning that you started out being very poor and destitute, and you're being raised up to be a first fruit leader.
Right.
So it is, the reason why it's connected, you guys, is because of the word shoot and aim. I mean, they're essentially the same word, different letters trying to communicate concepts.
Right.
It's like you have to go through the door first, yada. You have to be willing to open the door in order to realize that you're yara.
You're right.
That you're poor and weak on the inside.
This is the head. So the head, absolutely. So
Yes.
You have to enter the door to raise your head. This is the revelation. This is why, again, Mother battles us when we are able to enter in within us through the door. Instead of taking it outside and we rage as a nation and have war, we enter the door, the dalet first. And this is what allows us. Now the head is starting to be pointed. You've now shoot. You've turned in the head is now rotated and turned in the direction of revelation. Now you're flowing as water's intention. You are now returning what had flowed out. You are now turning the flow. Think of the dream vision that we had. What is coming back now is the returned answer. What flowed out will turn and return back the flow and go right back to Headship's mountain.
Right.
Pishon.
As the answer.
As the answer.
In the place where you are seeking answers.
Right.
You become the answer to the questions that you seek.
Now I put...
Right. Yeah.
So now I have Todah connected to this because the Yod, as you know, Carrie, the Yod is seeking to be established in the expanse of the Vav.
Yeah. So every time you see a word that has a Yod in it, it is waiting for you to connect to it, because the Vav means connect, and the Yod is connected to vision. Power means in direction that is given a vision, an open hand that's giving it to you.
So this is a precept and a statute, especially a Decalogue, right? Or the Pentateuch.
The Decalogue would be, quote unquote, the 10 Commandments. The Pentateuch would be the
Right. Now this morphs down to the same word to flow as water. Your mark now, as on your head, is a mark of revelation. You are celestial law by returning through law's intention. It's not a derogatory. It's not a restriction. It's expansion by definition.
So to help bring clarity on this, for those of you who think that we're saying we need to return back to the Torah, that is not what we are saying.
It's not what we are saying.
Okay. New Testament, Old Testament, you have to have both, because the Bible in its black and white phase of the interpretation of the sacred languages is to show duality. So you have one book that is without, and you have one book that is with, in order to neutralize them. You cannot have one without the other in order to neutralize that position. So if you're on the side where there is no law, then you don't know what law is. You are actually not in neutrality. So, but if you're on the side of the law without having no law, then you're in the place of that you're also not in neutrality. You're playing the game of duality.
Right.
So this is saying the mark is being able to connect the revelation of that which is coming through mother and father. So it's like mother's mark of the external reality that you've been able to master, because you no longer judge. You're exempt from judgment. You've been raised up, and now it's revealing to you the other side of it, so that you can render it from the place of where it's talking about, to flow, to be an arrow, to shoot.
No.
And the path of the mystic
is the
way of the arrow. If you guys know anything about some of the sacred ways of initiation, the path of the arrow is that of the mystic. And the mystic is one who has experiential knowledge.
So we've shifted.
It's nothing spooky.
No, we've shifted.
Again, right? Hebrew concept versus Greco-Roman.
Yes, we've shifted, of course, from when we started this, from more spiritual, because I felt the spirit on when we first initiated. Now we're going into more sharing to see why the spirit is able to come in the measure that it comes in. Is because this is a law that establishes it in the earth. Is there a progression of becoming it that seems a little restricted for us? We can honestly say, yes, we did not know what we did not know. No one can see beyond a choice they cannot see beyond.
Or a choice they haven't made yet.
And so we went through Christian camp. We went through the messianic part of it and the Hebraic roots
Yeah,
part of it. We are not defined by any of that
no,
anymore, but we have been filled up. They are part of our frequency and measure by us partnering with them. But now we are a fuller revelation or a fuller dimension, a fuller becoming based on what we and how we have moved.
exactly, because the Old Testament points to the New points to the Old. Mother and father point to one another. Without you,
Without you,
I cannot be me.
I cannot be me.
And so they point to each other. That's
Yes.
why it's important to render those things and neutralize them. In fact, Drew Paul said in a comment earlier, he was saying that the Old Testament was father and the New Testament was mother. And I would say yes,
Yes.
very much so, as
Yes.
far as the fullness of the spirit behind it.
Yes.
You know, because you've got divine masculine and divine feminine coming in that point to one another
Yes.
in order to neutralize and become one.
Yes, when we can see them correctly, we are mother and father.
Yep.
This is the amazing, and it really throws people when you say, "Wow, you're saying a lot." When you're saying, but again, we're gonna hopefully I don't know if we're gonna get to it now, but when the Elohim created, the Elohim, they says they created in the likeness of them, and that word is Dalet Mem Vav Tav.
The door to death.
The door to, so that's where it comes from. It's like create
The
them
likeness.
in our likeness, and
Right.
it's demut.
Right.
Connect, make them in the image that they're going to have to build to know death, because the Elohim are beyond in this dimension, and it's defined as death. But for us, we think death is but exchange, right? So it's going from the flesh form into the spirit form. So the Elohim likeness is actually building death. We're building their likeness.
But that makes sense, because if you're going through the door of the inward man, you're going into the moot. Mem is chaos.
Yes.
So you're entering into chaos in order to connect to your heart, so that you can be marked Tavav. You can be marked as one who no longer judges.
Right.
So really, you're dying to the system of duality.
Absolutely. You've rendered clear everything. You see it from
into neutrality.
You see it from all degrees of the circle. You see past, present, and future. You are now back in the state of architect, of creator.
Yeah.
And so, yes, you see everything from that vantage point, and you've rendered everything clear as neutral, as nothing, but that's where everything is.
So the Elohim ending in Yod Mem is the sea that you were talking about.
Yes.
The sea of expanse.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when it gets into the New Testament, it's Alaha.
Yes.
So there's no longer that sea where it's just drips and drops of individuality. Now it's all become
one expanse.
One expanse.
Yeah.
The revelation of the spirit breath.
Yes.
That reveals.
Yes.
The strong leader teaching shepherds.
The water flows. What we see is about a drip and a drop. But what we don't know but seek is the expanse of ocean's depth.
Right.
We just don't realize what we're seeking, but we are becoming deep.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just connect. So the red in there, that's why I highlight in red, because it's more of a drop in. The red, I highlight my stuff in red. And I, even the whole Torah.
Oh,
because it's kind of like, I know it's a resh that doesn't connect to the Dalet, but really it does. But it's more if it's a high level teaching, I just drop it in there so people can connect it. Now we're going back to the Dalet again, because it connects to the hand.
Right. And so from Todah, this is part of the original word, the primitive.
Right.
Just Yod Dalet.
Yod Dalet. So we can see that this is the vision, or the power means in direction of power. This is the hand. The door is within you, and the ability to tap the potential of power is solely dependent on your willingness to enter the door.
Right, because that door is going to reveal the power within.
It will reveal what it needs to reveal.
If you open yourself
to it. The power is based on the confronting of what's necessary to be fully revealed.
Yeah.
Revelation is not just aha moment. It's the realization of potentiality and what has to transact to become revelation.
Right. So the word even aha is Hebrew.
Right.
And it means alas, or behold.
Behold.
But then it becomes ahava.
Right.
So aha, you have an epiphany, then it becomes ahava, which is the bet. And that's the word for love. So the whole point of a revelation is to build love on the inside of you.
Yes, benign. Going back to Todah Rabbah, it means this has to be built in the very beginning. You're going to have to build this. Benign is by definition, beneficent means wholeness has to be built. It's the generous act of circumnavigating, right? The generosity is in the word, and it's saying if you want to partner with it, I cannot say generosity in any other form other than the expanse of the word. It's there, it is. We just need to partner with it, but it has to be built. Benign is built. This is how we turn ill to well.
Right.
So now we have the hand, right? So just really simple. Now we have this Yod Dalet one. So now we have praise is the power means in direction. By entering the door, you will find one. And this is the definition of praise, which is the definition of Todah. It means the praise offering.
So that helps us rightly establish what praise is, because I've had people ask that about, well, we've had people ask that, has your worship changed?
Well, you become you are the praise offering.
Yeah,
you are so yes, you are changing.
So as when you go into the door of the inward man,
yes,
and you discover the oneness,
yes,
unity, I just want to share this with people too. Oneness unity does not mean just becoming one with the Father.
No,
that's only part of the equation. That's the easy part. The work comes in the revelation of being one with one another and one with the entirety of creation, because they were never meant to be separated.
Yes.
I'm only saying that because I hear that a lot. I want to be one with the Father. I want to be one with the Father. But it's a multifaceted. It's just not pointed in one direction, right? It's the whole 360.
It's a corporate of unique individuality. It's really
the mystery of the many who make up one.
Right. That's the mystery of it, is you realize that what we're sharing, oneness is sovereignty fully established, and sovereignty is being separated, but it's only because they don't encroach on one another. But sovereignty is a body, sovereignty is a family, because they fully are aware of who they are. And so you're uniquely set apart, but you're in the corporateness of likenness. That's family.
Right.
Everyone in family, in the representation of one, is separated, but because they're separated, they form a body, because they're all, or well aware, purposely said, they are situationally aware of all dimensions at all times. And so you are uniquely knit as one sovereign, and there are many sovereigns that stand together to make one body.
Exactly. That's really profound. You slow that down and think about that. That's a Selah moment. Absolute Selah.
It's a very lofty concept, but when you see it, you're like, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful that sovereignty is being built. But it doesn't mean that we're separated out and we're lost in the consciousness and we're just a drifting whift. No, we are fully established. This is why this is why it's so amazing that we can share the opportunity of becoming a sovereign being. Because this is the gift, is that there's many that have already achieved this, and they're waiting for likenness to return.
Right.
As the answer to that which calls.
Exactly. Even that Hebrew word to call, it's kufav lamed. Compressed light that is connected in the heart that instructs is calling out to others in likeness.
And that's our heart. That's my heart intent. And I can feel that. That's my heart intent. And I'm calling out to my loved ones and my family, whether or not we are from the same mother and father. We're just a fractal of light. But I call out to my brothers and my sisters, and I say, awake, awake from the slumber. Become the intention. Become sovereign beings where we're not encroaching on one another. You've inwardly journeyed to express what is needed to be expressed. You've wrestled correctly. Well done, Israel. You have prevailed as one, and I now call you brother or sister.
And we return as Leor Shalom.
Right. Mother and father, brother and sister.
As Leor Shalom is the New Jerusalem.
You've built the wall.
You have the staff of authority. You are light. You are completed.
Actually, yes.
Because now you are Shem. You are of those who are named, that has authority on the inside.
You will see in this a little further on that you're,
we'll probably only go for about 5 more minutes or so.
Leor
Shalom or Yerushalayim.
Well, both, but that's a wall that's built. And what we just said about being family, stone upon stone, even the crossed over ones, actually are Jerusalem. They are light bodies that are sovereignly built, and they stand uniquely apart. But because of who they are,
they unite together.
They unite as the wall of Yara Shalom.
Right.
They are now the light bodies that are the wall that fully encompass and surround. That's what's coming back into this construct, is beings of light called Yara Shalom.
Right. And so as a stone, it's really those who have built oneness.
Oneness.
Ones who have built.
As a corporate wall.
Because it's Aleph Ben. and Ben is the root.
They
It's
stand-
son, but it means to build.
They stand as a
So
wall.
they stand as a wall in their fractals of being stones, as living stones who have built oneness.
It's just a metaphor.
And it's Ab Ben,
right.
Father, Son, this frequency of being built.
Right. So let's just go. And again, we're going to have to do another session on this because there's so much more I wanted to share. But so I wanted to connect this Yod Dalet because these are now two hands that are intertwined as one. It's called beloved.
Right. So if anybody ever calls the beloved or the beloved,
right.
this is actually the word.
So again, if you're looking at it or as it, you can see that even down below, just Yod Dalet, that if Yod Dalet is hand that praises, then both hands extended together. This is, if you're as it, then you have the power of the door has touched the power of the door. The right hand has now interlinked with the left hand. Mother is knit with father. This is the definition of both hands embraced as one love. It's amazing. So, because we can connect this dimensionally through what the language is saying. So, Todah Rabbah, much gratitude for building one love. Both hands are woven together. We embrace in this measure of the frequency of that which we are.
So when we want to become servant kings or servant queens in the heart of David, we're looking at his name right here.
David.
This is both doors.
Both doors.
Mother and father.
Expanded as one.
Right here in the place of the heart.
Yes.
So the Vav is an expansion. It's also a connecting. It's connecting the doors of mother and father in your heart because you've gone through both. And now you are called a beloved one.
Right.
I'm thinking that's a good place for us to stop.
Well, let's just take it down to one more thing because we just talked about the wall. So just let's go down. Please, I want to just make this connection because you need to see this real quick. So
okay, so we're going to land the plane.
We're going to land the plane here.
Because we've been cruising above at
this
high altitude.
But we just shared some pretty amazing stuff, and I hate to break without going there. So let's just go down because this is connected to the Song of Love and Psalms, the beloved temple. Because and now we're talking about this is the lovely temple that's being built. How lovely are your dwelling places? But the word means the temple. Right there in the green, there's the highlight. There's the tabernacle.
Well, that's interesting because Shekan, that's tent.
Right. This is the tent of meeting.
This is the tent of meeting.
Met yourself.
You are the tent of meeting.
So then the leader of so this is now still connected to, right? Yedithun, which now is connected to Yada, the knowing.
Right. Again, experiential knowledge, not just the mental knowledge of ingathering. From book reading.
So the comprehension of the temple of the Yod Dalet Vav Tav Vav Nun, right? While in the earth, by grasping the power, you hold the door of expanse that leads you to the mark while in the flesh. While in the now in the present, in the earth, you are the temple being constructed. Right in that word, that's what it's saying. And this is the mark of the temple in the flesh. And it's directly connected to Yod Dalet Vav Ayin. Now you are the power and the means and direction has grasped the door to be the expansion of knowing.
Knowing and seeing.
Knowing and seeing.
The purpose.
This is now moving in.
So in other words, you're seeing the fountain of the landscape. You're taking in everything.
Right.
So not the narrow perception,
down a
but
little
expanded.
Further. So we can move through this. I need to get to this point. So now Yada, to know.
Right.
To discern by seeing. Now we're moving into the measure of Metatron because it's all seeing through the journey of hearing. Of doing, you're now seeing as the answer. And so all these words, cunning, right? The most cunning of them all. We're going to break this down. Why the serpent was the most cunning and what that means. But now we have this word, Yadan, a builder of the wall. And that word is directly connected to thankful.
So interesting that this is a person's name.
Right.
But again, as it versus at it, all of these frequencies are you. All of this is you on the inside. So one that is thankful, that is expanded and connected to the expansion of really Father while they're in their flesh.
While they're in their flesh.
Because what are they doing? They're building a strong base to stand upon. Perpetuity, an heir.
The greater things you will do in the earth. We don't have to perish at 33. We can live our life. So this is defined as thankful. That's the definition of it. Thankful.
Right.
And then we're going to this. Now we have the same. Right. To be praised. That's word from praise. So now it goes right back to
how interesting, because it's both dalets, yido.
Right.
That's both of those dalets that have become one. Both doors that were separated now have become one. So this is like David's name, David, the beloved. Both doors have become one, and it is in the place of power. It
Absolutely.
leads in the place of power. And the place of power is the open hand that gives.
Right.
Power is not that which you take, power is that which you give.
Hmm.
Because you've united both doors, they're no longer separated. And now you are filled up to the expanse of the Vav that is connected to the fullness of Father, because that's on the suffix side, relating to the power of Father. So when you say that we're entering in to the season where the Father is stepping in, it's going to be those who are of the praised.
They built themselves through grief. They returned as gratitude. They resonate to the frequency as the praise offering. And in that which calls them, they return as the answer.
Exactly.
To who they are and what they are. So
this is the manifested sons and daughters that return in the fullness of gratitude.
This is what the earth is waiting for.
Yes.
This is the beauty in the earth again that's coming. So Thanksgiving is being love's praise offering, as you are the returned as wholeness, the completed who connected good to the adversarial affliction.
This is Todah Rabbah.
And then go down the first occurrence of this word
as the Urim and the Thummim, the perfected lights.
There you go. Da'at.
Yep.
The cunningness. This is now first occurrence, Genesis. And the tree of knowledge of good and evil is simply knowing, right? Wellness and illness, and transmuting the energy from grief to gratitude. You're actually taking maleficent into beneficent. And that word is even maleficus and beneficus means the ill fig or the well fig or the whole fig. This is what it means. And we're going to break that down soon here too. And so now you are the hand of a power and authority, right? You are now the door that knows the covenant's love.
I love that because it's knowing the covenant's love. And here we have Tov, we have the wrestle,
right?
To connect,
right?
That's meant to connect you on your inside, that in humility you will be an adversarial friend.
Yes. There's nothing more powerful to me. I would expect my best friend,
and that's neutral.
I would want my friend to stand in neutrality and know good and evil and give me counsel as a king. I would want my counsel of a groomsman and a bridesmaid to know good and evil. So in where I'm sit in my inner dwelling, I'm talking external and internal, I'm going multidimensional here, that I surround myself with the knowing of what is and what is not. And in that counsel, I sovereignly sit. By self-adjudicating, I'm able to assist another to find the way of intention.
Which is the place of neutrality.
Which is the place of neutrality.
And that is why you have to know both the good and the evil in order to neutralize it.
Right.
And that is why you become an adversarial friend. Because an adversary and a friend actually neutralize each other out.
That's
because when you become that, depending on the reflection of the person that's in front of you, they're going to see you one or the other unless they've neutralized it themselves.
Here's the second occurrence of this, and we're almost done. 2 more minutes. So yada, first and second occurrence below. To know, for God knows in that day that you eat of it. So this is part of the eating part of it.
Right.
It's the Elohim, the knowing of the Elohim. And this is now the gift of grasping the vision. This is the Kaf and the Yod, both hands, the left and the right hand.
Grasping the power that is given
the generosity
by those who give.
Right. Okay.
And with the diamond above it, that is actually a cannellation mark. That means a gift from God.
Right. So there you go. So this is a gift. To know the knowing of the Elohim is your right and left hand shall be met in one embrace as love. Now here goes the second occurrence. And you will be like God, knowing good and evil. This is now Kaf, grasping the Elohim, right? Through the wrestle of what is good and evil.
And how interesting, you take a look at that. You've got power of mother and father, both expressed in knowing.
The Vav He Yod Yod Tom.
Right. And Tom is completion.
Completion is the grasping of this revelation of knowing. And then we're almost
done. The twin visions. By the way, you guys would never see this, but this is important. You would not see this in the writings in English because this is Elohim that has the Kaf added to it. Mm-hmm. Normally, they'll just translate it as God or gods, but you will never know unless you dive in that there's an added Kaf to the front of this word.
So by this walk, this one has returned, because the Kaf also means to be completely tamed and rendered clear, no longer be. So by grasping, you have tamed the nature of the beast, and you have become the right hand and the left hand's intention as one. This is the Elohim, and now you're built in the likeness of.
Yep.
And now this is the vision to become shall come to pass. The compass, because the compass and Todah Rabbah are connected. Chaya, to fall out, to come to pass, to exist. Revelation begets revelation. Revelation of mother is the power, means, and direction of the revelation of father. Haya.
So that word that we were just looking at, the revelation of the twin visions that produce completeness, is from the root of Haya.
Yes.
So in other words, again, for you guys, you wouldn't see these things. You wouldn't know.
Can you take it back up so they can connect
Yeah.
that?
Well, Haya is right here.
I know, but to connect
Oh,
it
in
to
the
good and
verse?
evil, right there. So I highlight them and color them so you can see that is Haya.
And so this is ye shall be. You
Right.
you will be.
You
okay?
will be.
You will be this.
Yes.
This first word. You will be as humility.
Yes.
That reveals the twin powerful visions that are the mark of the covenant, exempt from judgment, having completed your journey into the waters of peace.
Well said.
That's amazing. All right.
And that is it.
Man, that's a lot. I know. And I'm bummed out because I can't see your guys' chats. And I know 18 of you are still in here.
Yeah. So.
And it's a big fat bummer because I would love to hear what you guys thought on all of that. But I guess it was, we didn't need to be distracted with everything that you guys were saying. If you do have questions, please, 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 when this video is done and is posted, you can always put your questions underneath in the comment section after the video. If we didn't get to it because we didn't see it, again, I don't know why our chat blew up, not in people talking, but it just went bye-bye for this little journey that we did with you guys today. But again, it's all connected to Todah Rabbah. And I know it seems like we went on a big journey from starting with the Todah Rabbah.
And we didn't even finish, actually.
No, we didn't come close.
I'm looking at just a page down. Know that this is the wish of father and mother. Like it's ahava. It connects to this, to know that we are a breath, and every breath is a choice. And so we are choosing to breathe, to partner with, to exist as one again. This is what we're seeking to find. And we're going to break down the wish and the will, because it's the same thing as completion and desire to become Todah Rabbah, the praise offering.
Through our breath.
Through our breath.
So through the Ruach, through the spirit, the exhale and the inhale is what gives us the life in order to meet the desire of the Father.
And this is
and the Mother.
The definition of existence.
That's right. To be, to come to pass.
Yep.
To exist in our reality.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. Todah Rabbah. We appreciate each and every one of you. I look forward to being able to interact. I do want to let you guys know that in just a little less than an hour, we are going to be journeying into a little bit more of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I think we only covered 3 pages last week because we went on lots of rabbit trails. But I did hear from some of you that you appreciated hearing our conversations. I don't believe Ken's going to be joining on that one. I will be steering the ship on that one, and having those of you who have read the book come and join in on a Zoom meeting. The information is on my Facebook page. If you go to Carrie Husband, you will look, and that I will reboost that link here as soon as I get off of this stream, and we will join you. We'll have to hurry up and go to our other location because I left my book in the other location where we're house sitting, and I can't share anything if I don't have the book.
I just want to say thank you for your patience. And
yes, absolutely.
And purposely said, I thank you for your kindness, and I wish you well in your journey of becoming whole.
Absolutely. Shalom, shalom, and namaste.
Shalom, shalom.